We have some important news for New Yorkers. New York Governor Kathy Hochul is fast-tracking $30 million in funding to ensure that 16 million meals are essentially paid for low-income New Yorkers who rely on SNAP benefits and food stamps who won't get it starting November 1st. This is a major step up as the federal government isn't doing much. State governments are. California is doing something similar. Now New York is stepping up to ensure that low-income families in New York have access to food. So there'll be $30 million to support 16 million meals. Now this comes on top of an $11 million support funding that Hochul has already announced in the past week or so. And she's also looking to figure out ways to kind of expand the free lunch program in New York across the state. Remember, SNAP runs out in less than 5 days. That means millions of Americans will not have access to food. Spread the word.
Donald Trump is going to save Thanksgiving. Like, this is a narrative that he cannot resist. He is cruel. He doesn't care if children starve, but he cannot resist the opportunity to once again look like a hero, right? So he's going to come in the 11th hour and find money to get people their SNAP benefits. And he doesn't have to find it. It's already there. There's a $5 billion contingency fund that the Department of Agriculture already has. They previously stated that they won't use it for to reimburse states for SNAP benefits, but Donald Trump can't resist the opportunity to look like a hero once again. So he's simply going to tell his Secretary of State to release the funds so people can get their SNAP benefits and enjoy their holiday. The Trump administration and Republicans have already been really effective at convincing people that this shutdown is Democrats' fault in the first place, right? Like, they keep beating people in the head with this message. If you go on a Department of Agriculture's website, you'll see this message in which they explicitly blame Democrats for the shutdown. And, like, you know, us low-key pretentious, educated people like to think that people won't fall for this shit, but they absolutely do. We've seen it happen over and over again. The most famous example is him putting his name on those stimulus checks. Like, that resonated and that worked. And we need to quit living in denial like these simple marketing tricks don't work because they do. And the Dems don't have an effective counter message to this, right? Like, we have Zohran Mamdani, who's doing his thing, who is really a brilliant messenger, but the establishment Dems are too busy, you know, distancing themselves from him, which is a huge mistake because he's the only one with an answer. Yeah, watch this shit work, man. Like, it's going to work like magic. He's going to come in at the 11th hour. People are going to get their benefits, and he's going to look like the hero.
Good morning. Happy Sunday. There is money in the budget for food stamps because the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, has a reserve supply of $6 billion that is for the purpose of emergency replacement of SNAP. That is the purpose of that reserve fund. Now, Donald Trump is not going to be using that. The Trump administration says it won't tap emergency funds to pay food aid. The move means 42 million people will miss SNAP benefits in November unless Congress acts. And this is the Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, along with Donald Trump, the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, her department, and his department, because he's the president. They have decided that they are not going to use that emergency funds that are specifically for SNAP benefits. The contingency fund for SNAP currently holds roughly $5 billion, which would not cover the full $9 billion the administration would need to fund November benefits. Even if the administration did partially tap those funds, it would take weeks to dole out the money on a pro-rata basis. In order to make the deadline, the Trump administration would have needed to start preparing for partial payments weeks ago, which it has not done. So they control the government. They have the ability to use these funds, and they are choosing not to so that they can continue to blame the Democrats. Congressional Democrats and anti-hunger groups have urged the Trump administration to keep SNAP benefits flowing into November, some even arguing that the federal government is legally required to tap other funds to pay for the program. But senior officials have told Politico that using those other funds wouldn't leave money for future emergencies and other major food aid problems. Administration's officials expect Democratic governors and anti-hunger groups to sue over the decision to not tap the contingency fund, but The White House is blaming Democrats for the lapse in funding. Trump was asked by Politico Friday whether he wants Congress to pass a standalone bill on food aid, which they can do, but they have to do it next week, real quick, before November. This is purely Democrat. They're doing some very bad things. I think they're lost souls. Do you know what that is? They're lost souls. What I hope that people who see this video will do is share it, save it, and whenever you hear somebody, especially if you live in a red state and you hear somebody who is not educated about politics and how government works, right or wrong, whoever fault that is, the school system, whatever, that doesn't matter right now. They don't know what's going on. And all they're hearing is it's the Democrats' fault. You don't have to get really into a whole lot of details that will confuse them and overwhelm them. Just simply say the USDA, the government, the federal government, has money set aside for this purpose. It's money set aside in an emergency fund for this purpose. They don't need the Democrats' permission to use it. They control the government. They can, and the Democrats would agree to this anyway. They're choosing not to use it. But meanwhile, we have the money to give $40 billion to Argentina, who has a right-wing dictator, and he is building a ballroom. Now, I know the ballroom is private donors, but I feel like that makes it worse, because what's in it for them? And why is this a priority over feeding Americans if you do have that money to donate? So share this, save this, and spread the word. They have the money. The money to fund it is there, at least temporarily. They're choosing not to use it. They're choosing to hurt Americans.
SNAP benefits are not being stopped because of the shutdown. It's being cut because of the current administration. The administration being Trump the chump and his cabinet of minions. They decided not to spend some of the $5 billion in the USDA reserves to continue funding the SNAP benefits during the shutdown. But Trump the chump does seem to have $20 billion taxpayer dollars for Argentina. He does have millions of taxpayer dollars for his Gilded Age ballroom that he demolished the East Wing for. He does have millions of taxpayer dollars for ICE. He does have millions of taxpayer dollars for illegal detainment centers like Alligator Alcatraz in Florida, but no money for food. Not to mention that Trump the chump is now trying to get hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars through the justice system for restitution because the Justice Department had the audacity to charge him for crimes that he committed. Now, just to be clear, majority of SNAP recipients are white folks. So all you racists out here in my comment section laughing at black folks because you think it's going to hit my community the most, think again. You're laughing at yourself. You should stop that. I'm up in arms about this not because I think this will hurt my community, because we're going to be all right. For me, this is more so about the 7 million children and millions of elders that will go without food because of this crime against humanity, because food is a human right, you monsters. And I don't care if the children are black, white, brown, or green. We can't allow any children to go hungry, you monsters. And I will not stand for you MAGA idiots out here trying to spread disinformation. Need I remind you that it is your party that is in control of the House, the Senate, the White House, and the Supreme Court? And somehow y'all still out here trying to convince us that it's the weak Democrats' fault. Sorry, that's not how this government works. In the U.S. government, you need this little thing called a majority to have any power. Now, I don't know about you, but I make my decisions based upon the facts, not propaganda fueled by hate and delusional white supremacy paid for by the billionaires who pull Trump the chump's little puppet strings. But this is what happens when you have a White House full of unqualified hires. You want to talk DEI? No. White folks failing up seems to be the real problem in the US of A. Meanwhile, millions of black women have been fired from their jobs where they were overqualified, and HBCUs are being attacked during homecoming season because this is America. I love you, black man. I love you, black woman. Knowledge is power, power to the people.
Y'all, this shit is getting so much more better. I can't even make this up. Hold my beer. Hold my beer. This memo said today, President Trump issued an administration notice that food stamps will not be issued on November 1st to anybody. They rejected a $5 billion contingency and said that they're going to hold that for hurricane victims of Melissa instead of using it for partial payments that could be given to Americans for food stamp assistance. What happened to organizations like the Red Cross, who already does funding relief for people who do hurricane, but you're going to take it from the American people's pocket? But
Is Trump going to give out SNAP benefits at the last minute to make himself look like the hero? It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility, but the theory alone doesn't quite explain why he would do such a thing. It's not to be altruistic, and we certainly know that it's not to end the government shutdown, because I think Republicans benefit more from the government being shut down than started back up again. There's one thing we know for sure about Donald Trump, is that he never does something for nothing. He's certainly holding SNAP benefits hostage as a bargaining chip, but I don't think the bargaining chip is to end the government shutdown. I think when push comes to shove and these SNAP benefits are actually cut off, and the Republicans that are on these SNAP benefits realize that no one is coming to the rescue, they're going to look to their leader. And he's going to have a solution for them. And this is the part where we're just talking. We're just throwing out ideas. Let's say Trump says, okay, I'm going to use these emergency funds that we could have used to pay everyone's SNAP benefits. I'm going to hand these emergency funds out to states. And I'm going to let them control those funds and decide how they divvy them out to everyone living in their state. But in order for you to access those funds, in order for me to send you money, you have to agree to something. And what's the one thing that he wants from all 50 states more than anything else right now? He wants control. He wants to be able to send in his men in uniform into those states. Okay? He wants National Guardsmen and military members in all 50 states. He wants approval from governors to be able to do that, because it's easier. It's easier to get it done when they say, yeah, go ahead and come in. What do you think is one really diabolical way to get every blue state governor to begrudgingly agree to total cooperation with ICE and Homeland Security? Tie it to SNAP benefits. Of course, given the choice, Donald Trump will want to look like the hero, especially to his supporters in red states. But of course, this is all dependent on whether or not the government remains shut down. And from where I'm sitting, they're not making any efforts to bring in the congressmen and senators back to work. So he really only has one or two options. He can leave everyone without SNAP benefits and watch his supporters starve, or make himself look like the hero. But he's not going to do any of that unless he gets something out of it.
I'm going to call out Donald Trump for not helping the elderly and the children that are on SNAP benefits. They're going to stop being paid starting November 1 because of Donald Trump. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has about a $6 billion emergency contingency fund that was created to be able to pay SNAP benefits, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, for those 42 million people that are on these benefits. Of these 42 million people, 39% are children under the age of 18, and 19% are people over the age of 60, which is 58% are either children or over the age of 60. And Donald Trump is choosing and ordering his Department of Agriculture not to pay these emergency benefits that they could out of the contingency fund. They could continue to be paid. But he chooses to play politics and tries to blame the Democrats when in turn these funds are there and are available to be paid out to help these children and out to help these people over 60. And there you have it. Love to hear from my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, and my burned out light bulbs. Tell the truth. 58% are women and men over 60 and children under 18. And there is a $6 billion fund that is available to pay the SNAP benefits. Donald Trump just chooses to pay politics. Another one of Donald Trump's lies. Love to hear from it.
Hey gang, so I said that I would share any other information I found out about SNAP benefits, and I said that in a couple videos back. Today is October 28th. It's almost 2 p.m. where I am. This information is as of today. Okay, so there are a handful of states that are going to be pulling some of their state funding to assist the residents during the shutdown freeze on the SNAP benefits. Those states are Virginia, Louisiana until November the 4th, California, Colorado, and New York. 25 states are suing the Trump administration over the SNAP freeze during the shutdown. Those states included are Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington, and Wisconsin. So I'm really, I'm glad that I found out this information. I know things are really rough, but I wanted to let you know what I found out today. And right now, this is where we stand. We'll keep an eye out. Take care. Bye.
Breaking news, a coalition of 25 states plus the District of Columbia have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration for holding up SNAP benefits for the month of November. I'm Major League, and this is news you need to know. Attorneys general and governors filed a federal lawsuit in Boston today, alleging that the U.S. Department of Agriculture is illegally holding up $6 billion of contingency funds that would go to SNAP benefits for the month of November. Now, because the federal government is shut down, no SNAP benefits are supposed to be issued for the month of November. But there is a contingency fund that allows for this specific circumstance. These funds are set aside specifically so that 42 million Americans who rely on SNAP benefits and food stamps don't go hungry. And once again, those 42 million Americans include over 11 million older citizens and children. So this Democratic-led coalition that filed a lawsuit this morning are looking to have those funds dispersed immediately.
California is now suing the Trump administration over SNAP benefits. It is asking a federal judge to force the USDA to fund the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program in November. Those benefits are set to expire on Friday. Previously, the Agriculture Secretary said they could dip into emergency contingency funds, but the Trump administration said that they would not do that. Attorney General Rob Bonta said not only can they do that, but they are legally obligated to do so. So California, not the only state on this lawsuit. There are more than 20 others, 8 of which went red and voted for Trump in the last election.
Things are heating up as we reach November. Now, the notices have already been sent out that SNAP is discontinued for November because they couldn't agree, but there was a $6 billion contingency fund that Trump can use from the USDA, and he chose not to. So people are saying it's the Democrats' fault, it's the Republicans' fault, but in my mind and how I feel, it's just everybody's fault. It's all y'all fault. Y'all can't get along. You guys always do this. And it's just really unfortunate that people will have to suffer. According to them, I don't think people should depend all the way on the government. You should have something in your back pocket that you can do, another hustle you can pick up, you know what I'm saying, or something. But this is where we are. SNAP is discontinued for November. And honestly, Foodie Gang, I don't know when the government is going to reopen. It's not looking good. Leave